Hi guys, this is Dana Ball. Today I want to show you how I do a high contrast black and white edit starting with a preset. So the photo I've chosen to edit is a photo of my daughter working out. Um, I chose this photo for several reasons. First of all, I think one of the keys to getting a really good high contrast black and white edit is starting with an image that's suitable for that kind of edit. And there were three things about this picture that made me think it had good potential for a high contrast black and white edit. First of all, there's this great rim light that kind of outlines her going along her leg, going along her arm up here, and there are highlights in her hair. And I think to have a good high contrast black and white image, you need some high contrast areas in the color image. And usually that can come from your lighting, whether it's some strong directional lighting, some rim lighting like this. Sometimes hard light can look really great in black and white images. So I thought the lighting on this image was suitable for a black and white conversion. The second thing I noticed was this great shadow down here where you can see her legs. This was on an overcast day, but it was about noon, and so there were still some really strong shadows, even with all that cloud cover. And then the last thing is that I think this image has the potential to evoke emotion. She's by herself, her face is not totally visible, she's working hard, but I think we can really pump up that emotion by making this image black and white. So, like I said, we're going to use a preset, and I don't do a lot to my images before I apply the preset, but I do like to get the exposure and the white balance correct. So this image was intentionally shot a little underexposed because of that real strong contrasty light that I was getting midday. So I'm going to increase the exposure, maybe up to about plus 50. And I'm also going to bring the shadows up quite a bit because that helps me see her face, and it also gives me some detail in those trees back there. So let's do that at plus 41. And then I'm just going to see what it looks like if I apply auto white balance. So that warms it up a little, and I think that's a good place to start. The black and white preset that I really love using these days is called Casablanca. It's available in the Click & Company store, and I really like it because it gives you a good high contrast starting point for your black and white images. So I'm going to apply Casablanca, and as you see, it made the blacks really black and the whites really white. And this is okay, but I am certain by going through and tweaking it a little bit that we can make this image pop even more. So the first thing I notice is even though we raise those shadows, they're still awfully dark. So I'm going to go to the shadows and increase them quite a bit so I get the detail back in those trees. And I'm going to really increase them all the way up to plus 81. And then because I know I want to make this photo kind of dramatic, I'm going to use some of my filters here to direct the light a little bit. First, I'm going to choose a radial filter, and I'm going to select my daughter. Let's see, maybe about like that. I want to make sure I have a pretty big feather on this filter because I don't want just a giant circle in the picture. So I'm going to put the feather up to about 67, plus 67. And from the drop-down menu, I'm going to select Burn. And that decreases the exposure in the circled area by negative 30. I'm going to come down and click Invert Mask. And so now it decreases the exposure on the area outside the circle. And I think we can even make it a little more dramatic by maybe decreasing it a little more. Let's go negative 49. Okay. So if you look at what we started with and where we're at now, we're already getting a much more dramatic edit, but I think we can do a little more. One thing I noticed is when we apply the Casablanca preset, the whites get really white, the blacks get really black, and I'm losing detail in the sky up here. So I'm going to use the graduated filter to pull down from the top, and I'm also going to select Burn there to decrease the exposure, and I'm even going to bring it down a little more, negative 55. I'm also going to decrease the clarity a bit so we don't have any blown out parts in those clouds. Okay. I also noticed that down here where we have this shadow that I really like, that I'm losing some of that shadow. It's just so dark down there. So I'm going to use another graduated filter, pull it up from the bottom. And I'm going to select Dodge from the drop-down menu, which will increase the exposure. I'm even going to increase it a little more, maybe up to +44. Okay, so now we want to look at clarity. The clarity slider is something I use a whole lot when I'm doing high contrast edits, because the further you go to the right, the more contrast you get. And so Casablanca puts it at +45, but I'm going to put it way up at +78. And I'm going to check and make sure I'm not losing any detail in these white places, and looking good. I come on down. I rarely do anything to the tone curve. I leave it just like the preset has it. The other place on the develop panel that I play around a little bit is with these color sliders. The orange slider will affect your skin tone. So if you look at her skin as I go to the right, it gets brighter and brighter. And so I think Casablanca had it set at a default at -19, but I'm going to bring it on up to about +6. And then the other sliders that would really affect this photo would be the yellow slider. The yellow slider will affect her hair. It will also affect anywhere you have greens, like the grass or the trees. So it started at -23, but watch as I go to the right, everything brightens up. Now that's too bright for me, so I'm going to maybe brighten it just a little, not much. The same thing with the green slider. It will cause things to brighten up a bit. It's at -27, and I might just move it to maybe -21. I don't do anything with split toning. For sharpening, I zoom in on an area that is in focus, like right here on her face, and I move the sharpening to the right. On this, I think I'm going to go up to about 52. And then I hit the Alt key and move the masking slider. And this masks off all the areas that I don't want sharpened. So I really just kind of sharpen the edges of things. And so I'm going to do the masking at +92. I also want to do just a little noise reduction. I'll put it up at about +30. I move on down the panel. Casablanca adds a vignette at -15. I think we can keep that. It also adds grain, which I don't really care for, so I just put that back at 0. Another slider that you can play with on a high contrast black and white is the Dije Slider. And as you see, it will make things darker. But for this photo, I might do +5. So I think that that is looking really good. If you look back where we started, we went from this to this. I'll also show you, this was our beginning picture. This is applying Casablanca with no tweaks. And then this is the final edit.